Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and tonight I just got back from watching the brand new Brad Pitt film, F1, the movie. I think it's actually titled F1 the movie, not just F1, but whatever. And yeah, I gotta say up front, I do not know much of anything about racing, let alone Formula One. Like, I don't know anything about that world, and I've only ever seen maybe 2 or 3 racing movies ever, and yes, I'm including Talladega Nights on that list. So I when they talk about all this technical jargon and all these terminologies in the racing world, I have no idea what they're talking about. But this movie, like a lot of them, it remains compelling because it essentially is still just a sports movie, right? And the sports movies usually follow similar formulas. They have their montage sequence, they have their ups and downs, and they have sometimes it's a guy trying to get back into the sport, sometimes it's a young guy trying to earn their spot, and all that stuff, right? So there's really only a handful of ways that sports movies can go, and this one, they kind of do both. It really is about the relationship between the older guy, Brad Pitt, coming in and trying to win this race from back in his glory days where he had this horrible accident, and he's got to try to redeem himself in his own eyes and all that, and we've seen that kind of play out before. And also it's the relationship between him and then this younger partner driver. I guess in a lot of racing there's 2 drivers. I don't know how it works, but whatever, there's 2 drivers, and the other one is a younger guy who's trying to get some recognition. He's so worried about social media and how many followers he has and all that stuff at first, and so he has to learn to mature and learn to appreciate different things about racing, and that's so they kind of play off each other, so they have somewhat of a rivalry throughout the whole thing, but also they're learning from each other. And I think when the movie is focused on that, it's really strong. In fact, I would say I kind of wish the movie was more focused on that, because this movie also adds in several other kind of elements just to help dramatize the stakes here, because you're basically dealing with Brad Pitt's friend who owns this racing team is gonna basically lose the team because his board is gonna say hey, you've been losing races for the last several years, so if you don't start winning, we're just gonna vote to sell the team. So stakes raised there. He's got to help his friend keep the team, and then on top of that, there's kind of a last minute, I guess, villain, you could say, involved, with where one board member kind of turns on everyone and tries to foil the whole thing. And overall, I really enjoyed this movie. First, let me say, IMAX. If you're gonna watch this movie in theaters, go watch it in IMAX. It was really filmed for IMAX, the full screen. I think the whole movie, especially the racing segments, they are amazing to look at. The sound design, all of it, right? If you enjoy racing movies or just experiences like that in movie theaters, this is definitely one to go see, because it really works. It was just, those segments just kept you engaged, even if you don't know anything about racing like me. It doesn't matter, you were fully engaged in what's happening. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I think my only real thing about this is that you think Brad Pitt's kind of motivations. I'm just going to call him Brad Pitt, I don't remember his character's name. You think Brad Pitt's motivations throughout this entire movie, and it ends on kind of a strange, or maybe just unexpected note for me, and I'll get into that in spoilers. But yeah, overall, I would say you're gonna know for the most part where this is gonna go. You're gonna have the montages where they're all getting better and they're starting to work together, but then something goes horribly wrong and there's drama between people, and Brad Pitt starts a relationship with this girl, and then it's a whole thing, right? You kind of know all the beats that this is gonna hit, and it does hit all those beats, and it's done pretty well. So yeah, overall, I would say this was a fun time. Go check it out. I have never seen some other racing movies. I know a big one was Ford v Ferrari, I think, that came out a handful of years ago, and I never saw that one, but I did see Gran Turismo, I think it was like last year or the year before that. This one felt a lot like that, you know, I guess just in general because it's a very similar movie. But yeah, anyways, go check it out. It's a fun time, especially on IMAX. Like, it just generally looks great. But let's be honest here, Brad Pitt is basically just playing Brad Pitt. Like, that's just, he doesn't really play any other characters at this point, right? He just kind of plays himself. But, you know, he does that, but now he's a racer, and that's what the movie is. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into a little bit of spoilers here, I guess for just the very end of the movie. And like I said, it plays out kind of how you think it would, right? Like, hey, guess what? At the end of the movie, they win the big race, right? Like, you know, huge spoiler, I guess. But the one thing that did kind of throw me off a little bit was that, so they kind of go into this thing where, you know, Brad's just in it for the racing, for the love of racing, because he feels free when he reaches a certain point. He's like I'm flying, you know. Which is the funny thing is, like, the whole time he's giving this speech where, you know, he's telling the girl how he feels when he races. It is almost the exact speech from Fast and Furious, which is also almost the exact speech from Point Break. So, you know, it's just like the same speech, but it's just kind of funny to think about, like, okay, this is just Fast and Furious / Point Break talking about, like, I just feel free when I'm out there behind the wheel, you know, when I'm going 80 miles an hour and nothing could touch me, man, I'm just free. Anyways, but the one thing that was, I guess, in character with that, but kind of threw me for a loop a little bit, was that he wins the big race and he does not stick around. Like, that night, he pretty much doesn't say goodbye to anyone except for the girl, and then he's like, oh, I got more business to handle, I gotta get out of here, you know, and he leaves while everyone else is celebrating. You know, and part of me was like, what's happening right now? This is like the end of the movie. And I think it's because normally when you think about, like, this character trajectory or whatever, it would be like he'd get with the girl, he wins the race, they celebrate, and that's kind of where you end it. But it felt almost as if Brad Pitt, because he is, what, like in his 50s now, it almost felt like this was a little bit of a midlife crisis situation, because he's like, no, my guy's not gonna get this, you know, happily ever after. He's gonna retire now and be tied down. Like, no, he's gonna go off to the next race, and he's gonna go find the next thrill and the next thing to beat, because that's what he does, you know. And so he leaves and he goes to, I think it's Baja he goes to, and he's like, oh yeah, I heard you guys need a racing, and he's gonna go race in the sand dunes on those, like, sand dune buggies or whatever those are. And so the whole ending credits is just footage of Brad Pitt racing in those sand dunes now. So he's like, okay, so he did NASCAR at the beginning of this movie, and then he did Formula 1, and now he's just gonna go do the sand dunes thing. So it's like, okay, so I guess this is a character who doesn't just, like, get a happily ever after and end up with the girl and retire from racing, but he got his trophy, and, you know, but the real trophy was the, I don't know, the family I made along the way, or the whatever, you know. He doesn't do that. No, he's gonna leave the party and he's gonna go win the next thing. And I don't know, it just, not that it did not feel like they're setting up for a sequel or anything. It just felt more like a note that Brad Pitt was like, okay, I'll do this movie, but we're gonna change the ending a little bit, you know. There's no way he's gonna settle down, you know, because I'm Brad Pitt, I'm not settling down. Like, that's just kind of the vibe that it gave off. But other than that, the movie does kind of just follow the typical formula that you would kind of expect to come from this, but it is a good time. It looks really cool. They filmed it all really well, and it kind of does make me want to go watch some of those other famous racing movies that I've just never bothered to. And I'm sure I'm gonna, like, watch those and go be like, okay, yeah, so there's definitely a lot of the similar formulas happening here. So I don't know, I say check this out in IMAX if you're gonna go see it in theaters at all. It is apparently an Apple Studios thing. I didn't even realize that going in, but yeah, it's you know, I do not have Apple's streaming service, but more and more movies have been surprising me. Of like, I go in the theater thinking it's just a normal movie, and then it's like, oh, an Apple production, and then, you know, it's gonna be on their streaming service in like 3 weeks. So I don't know, I guess while it's in IMAX, go check it out, because, you know, look, we got Superman coming out, and then we got Fantastic Four coming out, and I think Jurassic Park is coming out even sooner than that. So those screens are not going to be available pretty soon. So if you had planned at all to watch this, you better do it like within a week, because those other bigger movies are coming out and they're going to take up those screens. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, so yeah, let me know what you guys think about F1 the movie. You know, was Brad Pitt having a midlife crisis there at the end where he doesn't want his character to settle down? Or, you know, like, is this just kind of how these movies go? Also, where is Ford v Ferrari streaming? I should probably go watch that movie, because I remember a lot of people talking about that one, and, you know, I watched this and I feel like I should probably go watch that movie. Anyways, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later.